So there's Kira Vex, floating in a dying shuttle somewhere between the Andromeda Junction and absolutely nowhere, watching her life support tick down like the world's most depressing countdown timer. Half Seltharian, half Corvan, and 100% unwanted by pretty much everyone in the galaxy with functioning eyeballs. See, the thing about being a hybrid is that you get to experience racism from multiple species simultaneously. It's like a bigotry buffet, and Kira's the main course. The Zeltharians, with their fancy blue skin and telepathic abilities, think she's too aggressive and mentally noisy. Apparently having Corvan blood makes her thoughts sound like someone's playing death metal in a meditation center. The Corvans, meanwhile, consider her a weakling because she occasionally thinks before punching things. Revolutionary concept, really. Her latest job rejection had been particularly spectacular. Commander Thrak, a Corvan built like a refrigerator with anger management issues, had taken one look at her mixed heritage and started the usual speech about genetic purity. Kira had responded by fixing his broken engine in 10 minutes, then informing him exactly where he could shove his genetic purity, preferably sideways and with significant force. The result? Kicked off Nexus Station with barely enough credits for a cup of synthetic coffee and a death wish. Now she's here, in a shuttle she'd borrowed from a scrapyard, jury-rigging her life support with spare parts and pure spite. The oxygen recycler is making sounds like a dying whale. The heating system quit 3 hours ago, and her hyperdrive has all the reliability of a politician's campaign promise. But hey, at least she's got her sense of humor. It's dark, bitter, and probably toxic to most life forms, but it's hers. Kira pulls another wire from the navigation system, because who needs to know where they're going when they're about to become space debris anyway? She splices it into the life support with the kind of technical skill that would make her rich and famous if anyone could look past her unfortunate genetics long enough to notice. The recycler coughs, sputters, then settles into a rhythm that's only mildly concerning. Another few hours of breathable air, courtesy of cannibalized nav systems and creative engineering. Not bad for someone who's supposedly genetically inferior. She leans back in her pilot's chair, which is held together with electrical tape and optimism, and contemplates her options. They're not great. Actually, they're terrible. She could try to make it to the nearest station, but they'd probably take one look at her purple skin, blue hair, and red eyes, and decide she's some kind of walking contamination risk. Or she could just float here until her air runs out and become another tragic statistic in the galaxy's long history of discrimination. At least then she wouldn't have to hear another lecture about hybrid inferiority or genetic incompatibility. The thought's almost appealing in its simplicity. Of course, that's when her proximity alarm starts screaming like a banshee with commitment issues. Oh, come on, Kira mutters, checking her sensors. A ship's approaching, and it's big enough to either rescue her or turn her into cosmic dust. Given her luck lately, she's betting on the cosmic dust option. The comm crackles to life, and a voice that sounds like it was raised on caffeine and relentless optimism fills her tiny cockpit. Hey there, this is Captain Jake Morrison aboard the cargo vessel Rusty Bucket. We're picking up your distress signal. You need assistance? Kira stares at the comm unit like it just offered to do her taxes. Someone's actually responding to her distress signal? Someone who doesn't sound like they're already planning her funeral? She says, because eloquence has never been her strong suit. Yeah, I'm having some technical difficulties. Technical difficulties being a polite way of saying my ship is held together by spite and prayer, and both are running low. No problem. We'll have you sorted in no time. Preparing to dock now. The approaching ship comes into view and Kira has to blink several times to make sure her oxygen deprivation isn't causing hallucinations. The thing looks like someone took a standard cargo hauler and beat it with the ugly stick until it begged for mercy. Hull patches cover hull patches. The paint job suggests a colorblind person's fever dream, and something that might be duct tape is holding the port engine together. It's the most beautiful disaster she's ever seen. The docking tube extends with all the grace of a drunken octopus, but somehow manages to create a seal. Kira grabs her toolkit, which contains literally everything she owns, and prepares to meet her rescuer. The airlock cycles and out steps a human. Kira's never seen one in person before, but she's heard the stories. Humans are supposed to be crazy, unpredictable, and have a disturbing tendency to adopt anything that moves. This one's wearing a flannel shirt that's seen better decades, cargo pants with more pockets than any reasonable being needs, and boots that could probably survive a nuclear blast. He's also grinning like someone just told him the galaxy's best joke. "Hi there, I'm Jake. You must be having one heck of a day." Kira's defensive systems kick in automatically. Nobody's this friendly without wanting something. "Let me guess," she says, crossing her arms. "You're going to take one look at my hybrid genetics, decide I'm either a science experiment or a freak show, and then leave me here to become space dust with a clear conscience." Jake tilts his head like a curious dog. "Why would I do that? You look like you know your way around an engine, and I could really use someone who can make machines work through sheer force of will. Plus, purple skin is awesome. Very distinctive. You must save a fortune on hair dye." Kira's brain makes a sound like a computer trying to process impossible data. "You're not going to ask about my genetic compatibility or lecture me about species purity?" "Nah, that stuff's boring." "Want some coffee? Fair warning, it might be toxic to your species, but it's really good coffee." And that's how Kira finds herself following a flannel-wearing lunatic onto a ship that defies several laws of physics and probably violates twice as many safety regulations. The inside of the Rusty Bucket is exactly as advertised, rusty bucket-like and held together by what appears to be sheer bloody-mindedness. Exposed wiring runs along the walls like mechanical ivy, the floor plates rattle with each step, and something in the distance is making a noise like a constipated robot. "Home sweet home," Jake says, leading her through corridors that seem to have been designed by someone with a grudge against straight lines. "Murphy, say hello to our guest." A voice emerges from speakers that are probably older than some civilizations. "Greetings, biological entity. I am Murphy, the ship's artificial intelligence, and I would like to formally apologize for the captain's complete disregard for basic safety protocols." Murphy's a bit dramatic, Jake explains. He's been programmed with every disaster movie ever made, so he tends to assume we're all going to die horribly. Statistical analysis suggests this assumption has a 73.6% probability of accuracy, Murphy replies cheerfully. They pass what might charitably be called the common area. So, where a creature that looks like a cat crossed with a quantum uncertainty principle is either sleeping on a chair or existing in a state of potential sleep. "That's Schrödinger," Jake says. "We're not entirely sure if he's actually there until someone observes him directly." "Is that normal for Earth cats?" Kira asks, because apparently her life has reached the point where quantum pets are just Tuesday. "Nah, he got into some experimental physics equipment. Long story. You hungry?" Before Kira can answer, they're in the galley, where Jake starts preparing what he calls comfort food and what looks like a crime against several culinary traditions. The synthetic mac and cheese has achieved a color not found in nature, and the protein paste has the consistency of regret. So Jake says, stirring the abomination with disturbing enthusiasm, "What's your story? Besides the obvious genetic lottery win." Kira nearly chokes on her questionably safe coffee. "Genetic lottery win? Are you serious?" "Absolutely. You've got telepathy from the Zeltharians and enhanced strength from the Corvins, right? That's like getting superpowers from both sides of the family tree." "Most people see it as contamination." "Most people are idiots," Jake says matter-of-factly. "I mean, think about it logically. You get the best traits from two different species. That's not contamination, that's optimization." Something in Kira's chest does a weird flutter thing. She's never heard anyone describe her genetics as optimization before. The conversation is interrupted by an explosion from the engine room, followed by Murphy's voice announcing hyperdrive failure imminent. Please remain calm while we all die horribly. Jake doesn't even blink. Tuesday already? Time flies. Want to see something cool? He leads her to the engine room, where the hyperdrive is doing its impression of a fireworks display. Sparks are flying, alarms are screaming, and something that might be coolant is leaking in a pattern that suggests abstract art. I've been meaning to fix this, Jake says conversationally, but I'm not really sure which end is which. Kira stares at the mechanical disaster for exactly 3 seconds before her professional instincts take over. She drops her tool kit, rolls up her sleeves, and dives into the chaos like it's Christmas morning. 20 minutes later, the hyperdrive is purring like Schrödinger in a superposition of contentment. Jake's watching her work with the kind of fascination usually reserved for religious experiences or really good explosions. That was amazing, he breathes. How did you know the quantum flux inhibitor was cross-wired with the dimensional stabilizer? Because whoever installed this clearly learned engineering from a cereal box, Kira replies. Then realizes she's just had a technical conversation without anyone questioning her competence or asking about her genetic purity. It's a novel experience. 3 weeks into what Kira is definitely not calling friendship, because that would be admitting she's getting attached to a flannel-wearing disaster magnet and his crew of misfits, they get a job offer that's too good to be true. Which in Kira's experience means it's definitely too good to be true. Consortium Corp wants them to transport agricultural supplies to a remote mining colony called Heaven's Rest. The pay is enough to fix half the safety violations on the rusty bucket, maybe even get some paint that matches. I don't like it, Kira says, staring at the job posting. Consortium Corp doesn't do agricultural supplies. They do hostile corporate takeovers and questionable genetic research. Maybe they're branching out, Jake suggests, which proves that humans are capable of optimism in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Into agriculture? Jake, these are the people who tried to patent breathable air. That was one time, and technically they were trying to patent improved breathable air. It was regular air with a corporate logo. Murphy chimes in from the speakers. If I may interrupt this philosophical discussion about corporate ethics, the job does offer an exceptional payday. Also, EA and statistical analysis of our current financial situation suggests we have a 97.3% chance of running out of money before we run out of things that need money. Money. See? Jake says. Murphy agrees with me. Murphy thinks we're all going to die anyway, so he's not exactly objective. But they need the money, because apparently keeping a ship running requires actual credits instead of good intentions and creative engineering. So they take the job, load up the cargo hold with crates marked agricultural supplies that weigh about as much as a small moon, and head for Heaven's Rest. The trip goes smoothly right up until they reach the colony and discover it's surrounded by consortium security ships. Jake says, with the kind of understatement that makes Kira want to hit him with something heavy. That's not very agricultural. The comm crackles, and a voice that sounds like it gargled with bureaucracy demands their immediate surrender. Heaven's Rest isn't a mining colony, it's a prison camp. The agricultural supplies are weapons for the guards. And Consortium Corp has been tracking Kira through her biometric data from every job rejection. Attention cargo vessel, the voice continues, we know you have the hybrid aboard. Surrender the specimen for collection, and the rest of you will be allowed to leave. Specimen? Kira's voice comes out flat and dangerous. Did they just call me a specimen? That's incredibly rude, Jake agrees. Also scientifically inaccurate. You're clearly a person, not a specimen. Specimens don't fix hyperdrives. The lead security ship moves closer, and Director Voss appears on their view screen. He's exactly what Kira expected, the kind of middle management villain who probably has motivational posters about synergy in his office. MS. Vex, he says with an oily smile. you've been quite difficult to locate. Our genetic research division is very interested in your unique capabilities. Let me translate that for you, Kira says to Jake. They want to cut me open and figure out how to weaponize hybrid traits. Jake's expression changes in a way that makes Kira suddenly understand why humans have a reputation in the galaxy as the species you really don't want to make angry. Well, he says conversationally, that's not going to happen. What follows is Jake demonstrating exactly why humans are considered the galaxy's most terrifyingly unpredictable species. First, he rams the rusty bucket directly into the lead security ship, while shouting something about the power of friendship and adequate insurance coverage. Then he somehow manages to make their escape pods look like a genuine malfunction instead of the most aggressively helpful rescue attempt in galactic history. Murphy, he yells over the sound of alarms and probably several hull breaches, initiate the Morrison Protocol. The Morrison Protocol is not a real thing, Captain. It is now. Kira, I need you to reroute power from life support to the weapons systems. We don't have weapons systems. We do now. Murphy, make the coffee machine shoot lasers. That is not how coffee machines work. But somehow, through a combination of creative engineering, spectacular improvisation, and what Kira is starting to recognize as weaponized optimism, they shoot their way out of the consortium trap. The rusty bucket limps away from Haven's Rest with approximately half its hull plating and all of its crew intact. During the escape, while Kira's frantically trying to keep their engines from exploding and Jake's making tactical decisions that would give actual military strategists nightmares, something shifts between them. Maybe it's when Jake puts himself between her and the consortium boarding party, or when he tells Director Voss exactly where he can file his genetic research in terms that would make a Corvin warrior blush. Maybe it's when Kira realizes that for the first time in her life someone's fighting for her instead of just tolerating her existence. In the aftermath, while they're floating in space held together by duct tape and sheer bloody-mindedness, Kira finally tells Jake the truth about her past. I've been rejected by 17 different clans, she says, staring at the stars through a cracked viewport. 4 separate species have declared me genetically incompatible with their society. I've been turned down for jobs I was overqualified for because of my heritage. I'm broken, Jake. I don't fit anywhere. Jake's quiet for a long moment, then says, You know what, humans don't fit anywhere either. That's different. Is it? We're too aggressive for the peaceful species, too emotional for the logical ones, too chaotic for anyone who likes their universe orderly. Most of the galaxy thinks we're clinically insane. Most of the galaxy is right about that. Probably. But here's the thing about not fitting anywhere. It means you get to make your own place. You get to choose your own family. Kira looks at him, this flannel-wearing disaster who saw her at her most defensive and bitter and decided to stick around anyway. Chosen family? It's a human concept. Not about genetics or species compatibility or any of that garbage. It's about people who see you at your worst and decide you're worth keeping around. And that's when the consortium ships find them again, and Kira has to make a choice. She could run. She could take one of the escape pods and disappear into the galaxy, let Jake and his crew escape while she draws the consortium away. It would be logical, practical, and absolutely heartbreaking. Or she could do something monumentally stupid and trust that her hybrid abilities might actually be useful for once. She chooses stupid. Using a combination of Zeltharian telepathy and Corvin combat instincts, Kira somehow manages to turn the consortium's own weapons against them. She can't read human minds, but she can apparently scramble consortium TM targeting systems while simultaneously calculating combat trajectories that would make a military AI weep with envy. The consortium's retreat, probably to file reports about the terrifyingly effective hybrid and her pack of human lunatics. When Jake wakes up from his heroic unconsciousness, his first words are you okay? Not did we win, or what happened? Just are you okay? and something that's been locked tight in Kira's chest for her entire life finally breaks open. 3 months later, Kira's got her own quarters aboard the Rusty Bucket, painted in traditional Zeltharian blue with Corvan red accents. Jake helped her install a meditation corner right next to her workbench, because apparently humans think inner peace and mechanical chaos make perfect roommates. She's officially the ship's chief engineer, though she insists on calling herself the only thing keeping this death trap from becoming a colorful nebula. Jake's painted chief miracle worker on her door anyway, which she pretends to hate but secretly loves. The consortium's still hunting them, but now it's personal for Jake, which means they've made the classic villain mistake of threatening a human's chosen family. Murphy started a betting pool on how spectacularly their next encounter will go wrong for the bad guys. Kira's got money on catastrophically. She's learned that humans have words for everything, including what she's found here. Chosen family. Not about genetics or species or compatibility ratings. Just about people who see you as you are and decide that's exactly who they want in their lives. The realization hits her during the most mundane moment possible. They're in the galley arguing about whose turn it is to clean the protein synthesizer when a new potential crew member contacts them over the comm. "Where are you from originally?" the applicant asks Kira during the interview. For her entire life, that question has been a minefield. Zeltharian homeworld? They'd never accept her. Corvan territory? Same problem. The dozen planets where she's tried to make a life? All sources of rejection and disappointment. But now, for the first time, she knows exactly how to answer. "I'm from the Rusty Bucket," she says, grinning in a way that shows her slightly pointed Corvan teeth. "Captain Morrison brought me home." Jake overhears from the doorway and grins so wide it's probably visible from orbit. Murphy makes some comment about the statistical improbability of interspecies friendship working out this well, and Schrödinger may or may not knock over Jake's coffee mug in what might be celebration. The galaxy's still full of prejudice and corporate villainy, and people who think hybrid genetics make you less than whole. But there's always room for one more in a human's chosen family, especially if you can fix a hyperdrive and appreciate the finer points of sarcastic commentary. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you find people who think your differences make you perfect instead of broken, even if they are completely, certifiably insane.